Hey, growth sounds like success until it starts breaking things. In this episode, I'm going to unpack some hidden problems that show up when businesses grow too soon or grow without planning through it, and why premature scale often creates more damage than momentum. So let's slow down. This matters. It's what people aren't talking about.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Don Schin.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Don Schin. This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profits podcast, where we talk honestly about what actually is happening in businesses today, in franchising specifically, and what quietly holds them back. So, as we start a new year, I'm taking a slightly different approach, at least for the next few months as we get into a new year. Less noise, less tactics just for tactics' sake, and more clarity, discernment, and responsibility around growth, because growth isn't always progress. And in today's episode, we're going to start to talk about that. We're going to talk about the problems that growth often creates when you grow too soon, when your business isn't structured for growth, when you don't think about growth in a process manner. And so let's get into that right away. So happy New Year, and let's get right into it. Most people don't realize this until they've actually started to live it. Growth creates problems when it comes too quickly. We tend to think of growth as a solution. Hey, more sales are going to solve my problems. More units if you're in franchising, more locations if you're any type of a business, more revenue, more sales. This is all going to lead to better. But in reality, growth doesn't fix what's underneath the business. It actually puts pressure on the structure of the business. And when that pressure shows up before you're ready, things are going to start to break. It's going to break things as opposed to help really make the business better, make it a better asset for you as the owner. And quietly at first, and then it can be very, very public. And boy, that is really what we want to avoid. All right. So I've spent 25 years inside franchising, and actually 80 or 90% of that time has been about growing businesses overall. So I've been a franchisee, I've been a franchisor, I've been a broker consultant, and of course, now I do an awful lot of consulting, advising, and coaching around business growth. And again, very specifically, often around franchising and whether your business is franchisable. Franchising growth is very predictable. And so that's why I love growing businesses through franchising. But anyway, one pattern that shows up over and over again is that when growth comes before readiness, the cost of that growth is actually much higher. It is absolutely messier. And, it often gets more personal than most founders expect. Because founders often build the business around them. Their business, their universe revolves around them as the owners. And so this kind of growth without thinking it through, without planning for it, without creating infrastructure and the processes for it, again, not being ready for it, it can get very, very personal if you are the owner or the founder of the business. So today I want to talk about the problems that growth create when you are growing too soon, when you're growing without being ready. And this is going to be practical. And candidly, it's just not going to be a ton of theory. So let's dive in. The assumption that most people think, but never stop to really question is if growth is available, who should take it? Someone wants to buy, a market opens up, capital is accessible. And because growth feels like progress, it feels irresponsible not to say yes to it. Founders, let me say that again. Growth feels like progress, and you're gonna feel like, wow, if I just don't do this right now, it's going to be irresponsible for my company and where I really want to go. You're not going to want to slow it down. You can say yes, but we're going to be talking about slowing that down. But maybe saying yes to growth before you're ready, before the readiness of your company, before you have readied your company, maybe it doesn't just add volume, it adds strain on your systems if you even have them, strain on your staff. You're going to be asking them to do things they've not been trained for, they don't have the background for. Sometimes they're not the people that got you where you are, will not get you to where you want to be or go. And overall, it's just going to strain your leadership if you have folks beyond yourself, or if it's just you, it's really going to be personal. It's going to personally strain you. Most of these strains don't show up evenly either. And often they're going to be quiet. You're not going to realize it, or you'll see something, but you're just not going to recognize it as being part of the growth you're trying to do. They're going to show up where you are weakest. Let me restate that or frame that up in a different way. It will shine a massive, huge spotlight on the places in your company where you're the weakest, where you don't really do the best. And you know what those, if you're the founder, you know what those areas are. But again, you don't think that much about how growth is going to put pressure and strain on that, and candidly actually break a lot of things. But we're going to get into that. So here's a reality that most people have learned the hard way. And this is what I'm trying to help you avoid going into the new year if you have a lot of growth planned. Growth doesn't create the problems, it reveals the ones that you've been carrying. It can create some problems, but again, it's shining that big spotlight on it, on the weakest areas, on areas you haven't fixed, you haven't cleaned up, you've been carrying them, and it's been okay. But the growth is not going to let you carry them easily going forward, if at all. It's going to magnify what's not complete or what's incomplete. It's going to expose what was being held together instead of the structure you need for real growth. So let me start to break this down a little bit more plainly for you. Um, when you grow too soon, a few things are almost always going to happen. Systems that worked before, again, so if you're a franchise, or when you had 5 units, they're going to collapse at 10. If you are a founder of a company that you want to grow or you have grown, when you now start to open new locations out of your immediate general area, that's going to stress things because you don't have the systems for multiple towns, multiple geographies. When you grow too soon, communication gaps often widen. You don't realize what you didn't have to communicate about before, but now you do. Training gets really, really stressed. Training often gets inconsistent. When you were smaller and you weren't growing, you could handle a lot of this. But as you're starting to grow, all of these things are multiplying, and your training suddenly has holes or gaps, or it's inconsistent. The support structure, this is a huge one. And people really struggle from the cash flow and the capital being capitalized properly. to put the right people in place. Sometimes, honestly, you may have to let some people go because the people that got you where you are today may not get you where you want to go. So support becomes reactive. Uh, People are emotionally getting stressed and strained because you're probably asking them to do things they don't have the skill set for, or you've never prepared them or trained them to do. And ties back around to communication. You haven't really communicated where you go, and you're suddenly just throwing things at your people. And then overall leadership gets stressed very thin. Most founders of companies, as I said, have made the business very much about them. They haven't put systems in place. They haven't brought on the right people who can take ownership, or they haven't given them the right ownership of things inside the company. And all of a sudden, now you're trying to open up a couple of other areas and new geographies. You are really going to be stretched. So none of this means that you are bad at business. I don't want you to feel like suddenly I'm beating you up, or you're somebody that you're terrible, because you've done a great job getting you and your company where it is today. But what it means is that growth arrived before your business was really built to carry it. Uh, so the key distinction here, I'm not talking verbiage or academically. I'm simply saying there's a difference between being able to sell growth and being comfortable to support it. Again, if you're in a franchise system, you might be able to sell some extra units, and that's great. But you've not set up the path and the structure and the systems to be able to support it. Most people don't discover this gap until they're in the middle of it. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, look at the gap I'm trying to jump over. They're living it. And this is where now suddenly it's become extremely stressful. I've seen this play out more times than I can count. It's a very delicate thing. Again, if you're in the franchising space, brands that look healthy on the outside, but they were not held together internally. That's just a lot of hectic, chaotic activity going on. You can't always see it, but internally it is. Eventually, the market will ultimately see it. Franchisees who follow the playbook did what they were told, and they started stalling, not because they're bad business people or not because they're failing, but because the system around them was not designed for the growth of the new franchise partners, because the systems weren't really finished ultimately for the growth that the brand is experiencing. Founders who woke up one day realizing that growth wasn't making things easier. It actually made things heavier. And again, whether you're a franchisor or whether you're a founder of a business and you're really looking to see how you could get it beyond where you have it today, boy, this realization, if you're actually trying it without thinking it through and planning it through and setting up the right systems and structure, all of a sudden one day you're waking up and this is going to be a heavy burden for you to carry. Now, these problems don't show up all at once, but what you can start to look for is, especially as the founder, are you putting out a lot of fires? The staff that you have, the team that you have, do you see a lot of frustration there? Are they doing the same thing? Are they seemingly much more reactive than really helping your franchise partners, or really helping maybe a manager that you've set up in a distant town where you're opening? Your support teams start to fall behind on the things you really want them to do, and they've always done them really well. And then you as a leader will be pausing and stepping back and suddenly just saying to yourself, this feels a lot harder to do than I really thought it would be. So let's look, more deeply at this. Um, and I want to reframe just some of this responsibility. At some point, growth will stop being an opportunity and it's going to start to be a responsibility for the people you invited in, whether it's managers of new geographies you're opening, whether it's franchise owners that you're opening new areas through, responsibility for the promises that you've made. Again, if you're a franchisor and you're signing new franchise units, you've made promises to those people of the type of support that they're going to get. Again, if you're an emerging brand, 5, 10, 15 units, a lot of that support's coming from you. I encourage you to consider outsourcing because outsourcing gets you immediately the skill level that you need, the talent level, and somebody stepping into that situation immediately being productive and effective. But you've made promises to your franchisees that you're signing up. There's a responsibility for the systems that they were okay when you had a half a dozen franchise owners, but they're no longer okay. And you've kind of lost sight of the fact that it was the systems that they're buying. Again, if you're a franchisor. So this is where stewardship, I think, emerges naturally. That's the moment most founders aren't prepared for. Not because you don't care, because I think in the long run, hopefully, as a founder of a standalone business or as a franchisor, the founder of a franchise concept or brand, I believe you do care. But the moment you aren't prepared for happens because no one taught you to think through growth this way. Growth is going to ask you, how fast can we go? That is going to give you, the momentum and excitement and anticipation. But responsibility is going to say, what are we accountable for once we get there? So growth versus responsibility is the key here. So what I wanted to do in just kind of closing things out here for you, if you're in a season of growth or you're considering one, we're at the beginning of a year. So here's what I think is the better way to shape this, or the better way to frame this, or the better question for you to think about after being on the episode with me today. What problems would growth expose for you right now if it showed up tomorrow? Because growth will eventually arrive. I mean, unless you're just kind of going about your business and you're not really trying to be anything bigger or better. But if you're the normal business owner, growth is going to the opportunities are going to come upon you. The question is whether it strengthens what you're building or does it stress it? Does it help or does it actually start to break things? This quarter here at Franchise Building Expert, we're going to be talking honestly about scale, not as an achievement, but as something that carries real weight and real responsibility. We're not going to let our clients grow without responsibility. We're not going to help anybody scale without the understanding of the weight that that's going to take and the responsibility you then take on. So I really hope that makes sense to you. So next week, we're going to talk about what usually breaks first when businesses grow. And then we're going to talk about why most people never see it coming. Again, you're not a bad business person if you don't know this stuff, but it's why you want to be paying attention if in 2026 you have forecasted growth. Again, franchisors, emerging brands, you're 5, 10, 15, and you now want to get to 20 or 30. standalone business owners, founders. You want to grow your business into other areas than the immediate service area that you have. We want you to be thinking through what was going to break, what you have to structure for and prepare for, and why most people don't see it coming. And if this episode sharpened what you think about growth, share it with someone who might be wrestling with scale. Also, ask you to, if you're getting value here, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we look forward to seeing you next time.